Okay, so I'm going to make a quick video just recapping the Outcome 1 skills that we've gone through so far. So for this first one, we're looking at telling if fractions are equal to each other or not. So we're seeing which ones are equal to 18 over 24. So for fractions to be equal, you need to be able to multiply the top and bottom of one by the same thing to get the other one. So I see that 3/4 is going to be the same, because if I times that by 6 on top and bottom, I do get 18 over 24. So 3/4 is a match. And I'm going to now work with 3/4. Since I know it's the same as 18 out of 24, it's easier to work with the smaller number one, the reduced one, we'd call that. So if I look at 3/4, to match the 15, I'd have to times the top by 5 and get 15. But if I times the bottom by 4, I get 20, and I see that that's not 21. So I know that 2 is the one that's not going to be equal to the other ones, because it's not the same as 3/4. Same deal here, 3/4. If I times the top by 25, I get 75. If I times the bottom by 25, I get 100. This one is a match. And 3/4, if I times the top by 4, I match the 12. If I times the bottom by 4, I match the 16. So that one is a match. It's the second one that's not a match. The other thing you could do, the other way to do this question, is do 18 divided by 24, and you'll see that that's 0.75. And then you can just do 3 divided by 4, you'll get the same decimal. 15 divided by 21, though, is 0.71. So you see that that one's not a match that way. So those are the two ways you can handle that problem. Which leads into this chart here. So to change a fraction to a decimal, you just do top divided by bottom. So 2 divided by 5 is 0.4. And to change a decimal to a percent, you times the decimal times 100. And we'll see that 0.4 is the same as 0.40, is 40%. This one here, it starts with the decimal, so if you times that decimal by 100, you'll see you're at 20%. To take a percent and turn it into a fraction, percents are always out of 100, so you can say 20 out of 100. And then you could leave it like that, that would be fine. I usually like to reduce, so find a number that goes into both. Well, 10 for sure goes into both, so I could divide top and bottom by 10 and get 2 out of 10. And now I see, oh, those are both even still. I can divide top and bottom by 2 and get 1/5. That would be my lowest terms. 35%, if you start with the percent, you divide by 100 to get the decimal. And same deal, 35 out of 100 is our starting one. I see those both divide by 5 because they end in 5s and 0s. So I get 7 over 20, and that'll be your lowest terms because 7 doesn't go into 20. 0.24 is 24%. It's 24 out of 100. What goes into both of those? 4 for sure, so I'll divide by 4 first and get 6 out of 25, and that looks like the lowest terms for that. 5%. If people are doing this quickly, I'm going to see them put in just 0.5, and that would be the wrong answer because 0.5 is the same as 50%, so make sure you don't get tricked by that. If you divide by 100, you'll never get the answer wrong. Divide by 100, you get 0.05 for 5%. It's 5 out of 100. If you divide top and bottom by 5, you get 1 over 20. 3/8. 3 divided by 8 is 0.375. Times that by 100, you get 37.5%. So this question 3 has adding and subtracting fractions. Adding and subtracting fractions, you need to have a common denominator, which we do in the first one, 2/7 plus 4/7. Once you have the common denominator, you add the tops, and the bottom stays the same. So we get 6 out of 7. You have 2/7 and 4/7. You have a total of 6/7. In B, we don't have a common denominator to start out, so we got to make one. I'd ask myself, what's a number that 8 and 16 both go into? Well, this one works out nicely because they can both be turned into 16. So the second fraction doesn't have to change. The first fraction, 8 times 2 is 16. So times whatever you do to the bottom, you do to the top. You get 6 over 16. Add the tops, keep the bottom the same. There's our final answer. That one does not reduce. This one, we've got a negative involved, but same deal. We need a common denominator. What's a number that 4 and 3 both go into? They both go into 12. So I'm going to change them both into over 12s. Times the first one by 3. Negative 3 times 3 is negative 9. 4 times 3, that's how I got the 12. The second fraction, you're timesing top and bottom by 4. 3 times 4 is 12. 5 times 4 is 20. Bottom stays the same. We add the tops. Negative 9 plus 20. Which team wins? The positives win. They win by 11. So that one's 11 out of 12. This last one here, 1/5 minus 7/8. What's a number that 5 and 8 both go into? They both are going to go into 40. So you can always multiply the numbers together to get a common denominator. That is the lowest common denominator here. It won't always be. Sometimes there's a lower number, like in B where I only had to change one fraction. I could have done the denominator 8 times 16 and worked with really big numbers, but then I would have had to reduce my answer after the fact. Anyway, you're timesing the first fraction, top and bottom, by 8. The second fraction, top and bottom, by 5. Bottom stays the same. We subtract the tops here. The order definitely matters. 8 subtract 35 is negative 27. And then we'll look, does anything go into both 27 and 40? I don't think so. 1 goes into, 3 and 9 aren't going to work with 40. I think that is lowest terms there. And I always like to write the negative on top of the fraction like I have it there. One multiplying example, multiplying, so there's no sign between, so we know we're supposed to multiply. Multiplying is the nice rule where you do top times top. So negative 3 times 21 or times 7 is negative 21, and then bottom times bottom, 8 times 14 is 112. And then you try and find a number that goes into both if you're trying to reduce it. I could play around with a bit for this. You will find eventually 7 does in fact go into both if you wanted to reduce that fraction. And again, that would just be playing around on your calculator till you find something that works, or you learn how to use your fraction button and it'll reduce it for you. If you didn't reduce that one, it's not the end of the world, but we did want our answers in lowest terms, so technically we are supposed to reduce. Dividing, the trick we learned is you flip the second fraction over and change it to multiplication. So flip the second and multiply, and multiplying works top times top, bottom times bottom. So I have 18 over negative 12. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce that because I see that 3 goes into both of those to start out. And I'll get 6 over negative 4. And I see, oh, 3 wasn't the biggest possible number, I guess. I guess 6 would have worked better, but since they're both still even, I see 2 goes into both, and I can make it 3 over 2. And whenever you have a negative in a fraction, 6 divided by negative 4 is a negative number. It's a negative answer. I like to put the negative on top. So negative 3 over 2 is how I would leave that one. And the other thing we did was solving proportions. There's a few ways to do this. So you can look at this one and say, well, I know 6 times 2 is 12. So I'm going to do the top times 2, and I'll know that t has to be 5 times 2, 10. The other way I showed you how to do this, the quick way that I really do want you to learn, is you draw that cross, it's called cross multiplication. You're always going to have 2 numbers that are connected in that cross. So in this case, the 5 times the 12. Those are the 2 numbers you multiply. And then the odd number out is 6. Divide by 6. If you do that, you will get 10 as your answer. When it's written as ratios, I would just take a second, rewrite that as a fraction. so that I can do that cross multiplication trick. So the 7 and the 24 are connected. I'll multiply those. The 21's the odd duck out. I'll divide by that. 7 times 24, divide by 21, and I get my answer is 8 for x there. In this one, the 3 and the 72 are connected. Divide by the 18 that's unconnected. I got 12 there. And last one. 5 and 35 are connected. 7's the one that's not connected to a number, so divide by the 7. And there we have it. So 25 for that one. So hopefully you were able to remember how to do these skills as we move forward to working on the rest of this outcome next week.